In this video, I will rank all the historical movies of 2023 that I have seen. A few weeks ago, I uploaded a video in which I ranked the historical TV shows that aired last year, and in this video, I will rank the movies. I saw 20 new historical movies in 2023, including very famous ones and much lesser known movies. I will use these usual 5 tiers that I have used in my previous ranking videos. So let's see the movies. First, I saw the Italian-French movie Caravaggio's Shadow, which is about the famous Italian painter Caravaggio. It is set in 1610, when the Catholic Church secretly investigates Caravaggio as the Pope weighs whether to grant him clemency for killing a rival. The movie became very acclaimed in Italy, but I think it did not gain such international recognition. The movie looks very beautiful, it has a very spectacular artistic design, which should be the case with the Caravaggio movie, and I think it also had an interesting story and great plot. However, to me, it was a bit too long and it had several quite boring parts. So I will put this first movie in the middle tier. Then I also saw Till, which is an American biographical film based on the true story of Mamie Till Bradley, an educator and activist who pursued justice after the murder of her 14-year-old son Emmett in August 1955. The movie was considered an Oscar snub last year, especially the main actress Danielle Deadwyler's performance was thought to be worthy of a nomination. While I agree that she was tremendous in the role, and the movie was really moving and heartbreaking, I think it was also a bit too long, and several parts of it were a bit too slow. So I think I should also put this in the decent tier. I also watched a Norwegian movie, Narvik, on Netflix, which depicts the battles of Narvik from April to June 1940. I like Norwegian and Scandinavian movies in general, including World War movies, and I liked this movie as well. It has very impressive cinematography, and it is also great to see lesser known episodes of the war getting more screen time. However, I think the characters in the movie are quite shallow. That was the weak point of the movie. So I have to put this movie in the decent category too. I swear this is just a coincidence and I will not rank every single movie here in the middle tier. I saw several other non-English language movies last year, including The Forger, which is a German drama based on the true story of Zioma Schönhaus, a Jewish boy who saved hundreds of lives thanks to his ability to forge passports while hiding in Berlin during World War II. The main role is played by German actor Louis Hoffmann, you know, the guy from Dark and All the Light We Cannot See. It seemed to be a very interesting story, but somehow the movie didn't manage to depict it properly, I think. It was a bit of a mess, it was hard to follow what was happening and why. Though the acting was good, and in general the movie was not so bad that I should rank it in the lowest tier, but I can't rank it higher than could have been better. Then, another international movie from last year that can be watched on Netflix, Hadik, which is a Hungarian movie about András Hadik, a field marshal in Maria Theresa's army. The movie depicts a small episode of his career, but the most famous one, I think, when he captured the Prussian capital Berlin during the 7 Years' War, which Maria Theresa fought against Frederick the Great. I think the movie, while not a very accurate depiction of the campaign itself, is quite decent as an adventure movie. It is the kind of old-school adventure movie with typical characters and a comedic tone, but I think it is a decent movie. Another German movie I watched last year was Seneca on the creation of earthquakes. This is supposed to be a historical drama, dark comedy film about the last days of the ancient philosopher Seneca and the beginnings of Emperor Nero's despotic regime in ancient Rome. The movie has a stellar cast. John Malkovich stars as Seneca, and the other main roles are played by Geraldine Chaplin, Mary Louise Parker, Louis Hoffman, and Julian Sands. The movie is also notable, sadly, as Julian Sands' last work before his disappearance and death in the San Gabriel Mountains. Despite having such a cast, the movie is a complete disaster, in my opinion. Maybe it is just me, I am the one who can't understand its dark humor, but I must say that to me this movie was a complete waste of time. Then, let's see another German language movie and another black comedy. Sisi I, a German-Swiss-Austrian movie about Empress Elizabeth of Austria and Countess Irma Staray, a lady-in-waiting who served her in her last years. The main role, Irma, is played by Sandra Hüller, who has recently had a very successful run of films, starring in The Zone of Interest, which I sadly haven't seen yet, and in Anatomy of a Fall. The movie looks at Empress Elizabeth from Irma's point of view, which I think is a very good, fresh take on a quite overdone historical figure. Despite the good concept and the famous cast, I think the movie ended up being quite bad. Maybe it's just me and historical dark comedies, I don't know. I have seen the movie was quite successful in Germany, winning several awards, but to me it was, well, almost a waste of time and money. Even Sandra Hüller seemed very miscast in this role. In my opinion, it would have been better if they had cast a Hungarian actress to play this Hungarian lady. So I am putting this movie in the could have been better category, but just because Seneca is already in the lowest tier, and that movie is so horrible that Sisi I really doesn't deserve the abomination of being next to it. Then let's go on to another American biographical movie, Chevalier. It is about the life of the French Caribbean musician Joseph Bologne, Chevalier de Saint-Georges, who was also called the Black Mozart. The titular role is played by Calvin Harrison Jr., while the rest of the cast includes Samara Weaving, Lucy Boynton, and Minnie Driver. I had known that this movie would come in 2023 for several years, and I was very hyped up about it. I read about this historical figure, and I thought his life story was very intriguing and the perfect movie material. Also, this period of French history seems to be in fashion now in the movie industry. Chevalier himself was also a character in the latest Marie Antoinette TV series that aired last year. But despite the talented cast and the intriguing story it was based on, the movie didn't quite manage to live up to my expectations. I think that the most interesting parts of his life were left out of the movie. So, I think this could have been better. The next one is the Netflix movie, The Last Kingdom, 7 Kings Must Die. This movie is a sequel to the TV series The Last Kingdom, which ended in 2022, and the whole story was basically concluded by this movie. It is mostly about the succession crisis that comes after the death of King Edward the Elder, and it also chronicles the last period of the life of the main hero Uhtred. The series itself was one of my favorite historical TV shows ever, and I liked this movie too, although not as much. It did not become one of my favorite historical movies. So it will go into the very good tier. I also saw an Indian movie last year, Ponniyin Selvan Part 2. This is the second part of a duology that is based on a novel, and the story follows a prince and his family as they deal with threats to the Chola Empire, which was a state in South India. Both Part 1 and Part 2 are visually spectacular movies, and the story is also an intriguing Game of Thrones type story. I think Part 1 is a better movie than Part 2, but Part 2 is decent as well. The next one is also an Asian movie. It is The Legend and the Butterfly, which is a Japanese movie about Oda Nobunaga, a powerful shogun in 16th century Japan, and his wife Nohime. It is about their relationship, but it is not your typical romantic drama. It has a very special, unique story about two people and their marriage. I really liked this movie. I have not seen many Japanese movies, but I think this is the best I have seen so far. So this will go into the very good tier. I watched another Japanese movie last year, Kingdom Part 2 Far and Away, which is the second movie in the Kingdom film trilogy. The three movies are based on a manga series which portrays the life of Li Xin, a famous general of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of unified China. Well, as you can expect from movies that are based on a manga, they are not exactly accurate historically, but the first Kingdom movie was quite fun, the second less so. It was quite slow and boring and unnecessarily long. I think it could have been better. Then we have come to the probably most famous movie on this list, Oppenheimer, which is a biographical movie about J. Robert Oppenheimer, an American physicist who is often called the father of the atomic bomb. I think this movie needs no introduction. It has an all-star cast, it was a box office hit, it swept the Golden Globes, and it has a good chance to do the same at the Oscars. I think it will surprise no one if I say that I consider this a very good movie. I think the way Nolan went against certain biopic cliches was a very good decision in the end. The actors are superb, the story is engaging, everything is awesome. However, for some reason, even I can't explain precisely why, it did not become one of my favorite historical movies, and it is not even the movie I liked the most in 2023, and I feel I can't quite put it in the highest tier, only in the very good one. Then we have some less good movies too on this list. The next one is Jeanne du Barry, a French movie about King Louis XV's last official mistress. This movie is probably most famous for being Johnny Depp's comeback movie. I made a review video about it a few months ago, so I will not go into details now. I had several problems with this movie, and I think it could have been better. Much better. Well, if Oppenheimer had a stellar cast, we can say the same about Killers of the Flower Moon, which is an American epic western crime drama film directed and produced by Martin Scorsese. Actually, I was not quite sure I should bring this movie here, because I can't decide whether this counts as a historical movie or it is rather a true crime movie. But since it is about real-life events and a significant part of American history, I thought that it should be here. Set in the 1920s, it focuses on a series of murders of Osage Nation members after oil was discovered on tribal land. Now, this movie is very, very long, which is not surprising as it is a Scorsese movie, but I think that in some cases, in some of his movies, the long running time is perfectly justified and you can't be bored for a single second while watching the movie. And I don't think it is one of those movies. I think this is unnecessarily long with several long tedious parts, and I also think that it focuses on the wrong people. I would have wanted to watch this story from other people's point of view. I am sorry, I know this movie is a very, very acclaimed one, but I can't put it higher than could have been better. Sorry. Then let's see a British movie, a much less famous movie, I think. Boudica, Queen of War. It is about the legendary warrior queen of the Iceni who led a revolt against the Romans. Now, Boudica is definitely a historical woman who deserves to have her own Braveheart style, big budget, epic historical action film, but this movie is not that. I really don't know what was going on in this movie. I really don't. I don't know what Olga Kurilenko was doing in the lead role. I don't know what this nonsense plot was when all they had to do was follow the historical story, which is already a perfect epic movie material. I don't know. Again, the only thing that saves this movie from going into the waste of time tier is that the horrible Seneca is already there, but it is the lowest could have been better movie. Well, after this terrible disappointment, we finally have something better. It is the Turkish movie Atatürk 1881-1919 Part 1. It is about Mustafa Kemal Atatürk, the founding father of the Republic of Turkey. It is about his youth, basically. The first part of the duology came out in 2023. That is what I am going to rank now, but I think Part 2 also already come out this January. Now, I liked Part 1 very much. Everything was great in it, save for one quite huge thing. There was no ending whatsoever. The movie just ended quite early in the middle of something. I think that when I watch Part 2, everything will fall into place, but for now, ranking only Part 1, because they aired separately, I can put it not higher than decent. Then we have an American biographical movie again, Rustin, which is about civil rights activist Bayard Rustin. I must say that I didn't know anything about him before, and I didn't really have any expectations for this movie. I just found it on Netflix and thought I would give it a go. I expected a typical, kinda boring biographical movie, but it was the opposite. It is a very dynamic, fast-paced movie with an interesting story and good writing. It is not about Rustin's whole life, it is mostly about how he organized the 1963 March on Washington with Martin Luther King. Colman Domingo received an Oscar nomination for his acting in this movie, and I think the rest of the cast was also very good. This was the first time I saw Chris Rock since that moment, and his acting was also great here. So, this movie will go into the very good tier. Then, another movie which I made a whole review video about last year, Napoleon, directed and produced by Ridley Scott. I think this also needs no introduction. It got a very extensive media coverage. As I explained in my review video, this movie was a great disappointment to me and I had many problems with it. So I will put it in could have been better. And finally, last but not least, I saw the Danish epic historical drama The Promised Land, starring none other than Mads Mikkelsen. It is set in 18th century Denmark and it is about Captain Ludwig Kalen, an impoverished Danish officer who obtains permission from the Royal Danish Court to build property on the barren moorland for land cultivation. To be honest, while I love Mads Mikkelsen, I didn't quite expect this story and this movie to captivate me too much, but oh how wrong I was. This movie is beautiful, haunting, heartbreaking, exciting. It is fantastic. It is the best movie I saw in 2023. While it swept the European Movie Awards, it was outrageously ignored by the Americans. I have no idea how it got no nomination as Best Foreign Language Film, either at the Golden Globes or at the Oscars. Well, probably it means a bit less than an Oscar nomination, but to me, this is the winner this year. Well, while it is good to end this on a high note, I must say there are too many movies in the second lowest tier for my liking. What do you think of these movies? Have you seen them? Do you agree with my rankings? Let me know in the comments.